Buried treasures hid beneath, delicate and wonderful. Lacework made of shining rock, crystal gems built from water. Shattered by the quarry blast, damaged caverns were laid bare, and in sorrow cavers worked to preserve the pieces left. Now in rescued halls we tread, we move with caution, marvelling. Bright and dark and beauty rare, grown by water, time and stone. Hidden wonders make Mendip's Fairy Quarry Cave a fascinating place.
A lot of people do care for the quarry and have got a lot of affection for the quarry.
Before the survey was done, mind.
Yeah, and the survey was totally incorrect, the original survey.
When I first came to the quarry, I was 15.
That was the tree.
Just a sprig.
It is, it's very peachy, and it's got lots of weird knobbly stuff as well. Some stuff's straight, some stuff's wonky, some fat, some thin.
Perfect drop for filming. That seems like you could get up there and film that one.
I think I was on one leg, standing on one leg, twisted for about half an hour. But that's what you got to do for your art.
These curtains are well renowned, and you'll see them on the front cover of the Mendip Guide.
Don't believe him, colleague. He's an idiot.
I remember coming up here, it must have been 40 years ago, and only once.
Ridiculous place.
So you can get through without getting wet. Alright, I just got mist on the lens.
Its caves are endlessly surprising.
Phenomenal grotto, isn't it?
It is.
It really is. And it's pretty much pristine as well, really. Everybody has managed to avoid it.
They are often exquisitely beautiful and made even more rewarding by the physical challenges of exploration.
I think Andy's just bigger than you.
The quarry and its caves are protected as a site of special scientific interest.
Got the warm air coming out. Yeah.
Before quarrying began at the start of the 20th century, the only known cave was Fairy Cave. This was first explored systematically by the monks of Downside Abbey. Squeezing through crawls and finding beautiful formations, they were disappointed to be stopped by a choke of boulders. Then this was still the end of the cave until 1972. Eastern Mendip is one of southern England's major sources of quarried rock. Fairy Cave Quarry was one of the earliest fully industrialised quarries. It has closed down, but many much larger ones took over its job and form a major land use in the area. In the 1920s, Mendip Stone Company began removing the rock right next to Fairy Cave, and then extending southwards into the surrounding farmland. In the 1960s, Hobbs Quarries Limited took over and worked more extensively, but the quarry still remained small by modern standards. Quarrying methods used drilling and explosives made by mixing diesel and fertiliser. This broke the rock along joints and steeply dipping beds. explosions shattered many of the quarry faces, but did leave some solid, steeply dipping rock surfaces.
Superb place for the climbers as well, because by all accounts I've heard it said that there's some of the best slab climbs in the country in the quarry here because of the dip of the limestone. And on a sunny day like this you can regularly see climbers in the quarry.
The impact of quarrying went much deeper. Cave damage evidence shows that destructive shock waves weakened joints and beds.
Yeah, this is a bit of bedding that's tumbled out of the roof and inverted itself and landed upside down, so you've got these formations on what would have been on the wall and now inverted on the floor.
In the 1960s, quarrying exposed voids. Without quarrying, we would be none the wiser about these. There was a good relationship between the cavers and the quarry staff. Once a cave was uncovered, local cavers were told and allowed to explore and document these caves before they were, in some cases, destroyed in the next round of blasting. Initially, cavers were even provided with a cottage base next to the quarry. The first major passage to be revealed by quarrying was in 1954. It was called Hillier's Cave. Next to the quarry entrance, it escaped removal.
Might as well use this very convenient road.
However, upstream and downstream from the entrance, it was used to dispose of quarry sludge.
Essentially pushing along a mound of slurry rather as you might do in a farmyard.
In one chamber, a leakage of tar from the site above created some unwelcome black formations.
With the black, yeah.
It's just leaked in over the years.
Beyond these, Hillier's has colourful and attractive chambers.
Just a little trickle of water, you can't imagine that would just form there, can you?
Much of it has comfortably sized passages, but with tight, awkward connecting obstacles.
We'll get into space that can move.
One such passage was cleared in 1972 to give the linking route between Fairy Cave and Hillier's Cave. This is a classic Mendip grovel.
She's a brave lass.
Yeah. Created by water partly filling a low passage.
Whoa! Oh, that's delicious! I'm out of the water now.
Fernhill Cave was opened up on the north side of the site to reveal a rift which led to some impressive curtain formations. It was open for about 4 years, but then buried and subsequently lost. Dave King takes up this story.
So Fernhill Cave, the entrance to it was uncovered originally with quarrying, and that's down at the floor level of the quarry, which is about 8 to 10 metres below where we're standing at the moment. Back in the 60s when it was first discovered, it was investigated and explored, but then the quarry owners decided to extend the quarry over in that direction, and so they bulldozed all the overburden soil they didn't want straight over the top. Over the years, many teams have tried to find a way into it from Fairy Cave. But then some photographs appeared in Wells Museum showing the cliff face and the original entrance. We were able to pick out some of those points on the cliff face so we could actually highlight exactly where the entrance was. Because to dig into this lot, not knowing whether you're going to hit it or not, was impossible. We then brought in 2 diggers for a week and dug 30 feet down. We were hoping to be able to put the pipes on the rift of the entrance in a vertical line, but we couldn't because of where it was, and we had to get them in quickly. Once we got down to that point and put the pipes in, it was all backfilled to what you see now. It was a combined effort in terms of costs from Natural England, quarry owners, the diggers ourselves, and Fairy Cave Quarry Management Committee. We then spent another year digging out the spoil that had filled in the rift, and the trouble, it like an hourglass, it was all just flowing in as we were digging it out. And then we did finally break through into the old chamber, not knowing whether the original curtains were going to be there or not. But when we got down there, we were quite pleased to find they were fairly untouched.
Have we got a rope?
Yep.
We tie the kit on a rope. A lovely 45 degree.
Yeah, that's right.
We could have just slid down. Whee! This is where you usually throw the ladder down the pitch.
Yeah, you can back and foot it as a climb, but it's not worth it.
So when we dug out the entrance rift and then dug horizontally, we then had to shore this up because this was still all tumbling in. But it's fairly unstable at the top there, and it gets pretty close to the surface because, say, we pulled out about 32 tonnes approximately. But the survey wasn't very clear where this main chamber was. Then we decided to try digging horizontally, and then suddenly we broke through into the black space into this main chamber. That was back in 2009.
Nearly there, really.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it? It really is.
The development along here seems to be various rifts. At the far end, there is a voice link through to Fairy Cave, but it's lots of small boulders, like an hourglass. If you try and dig it, it's carry on tumbling in.
I do remember digging it 40 years ago from the fairy side.
And you're quite right, it's pretty tragic.
Yeah.
Gave that up, yeah.
When I joined, that was my next trip to go down. The quarry face just disappeared in a few weeks and took everything with it, really.
Yeah.
The main chamber was still there.
Yeah.
So you could go in the main chamber in the upper and lower series. But then right at the end, they quarried away the chamber. There's no need to at all. And they just took out another 10 yards of rock. But they got planning permission for so much more if they wanted to.
The original Balch's cave now forms multiple remnants. These are separated cave passages. Many are important habitation sites for bats, particularly over the winter.
Right, Balch Cave was discovered in 1961 and the entrance was just around the corner there. It had a very short life, unfortunately. It was demolished in 1965.
Yeah. Neither of us got in it.
No, we missed
by the
it.
time that we'd done exams, the quarry face just shot this way in a matter of months.
So Maypole Chamber was here, on this area. Erratic Passage is just at the top of that mound.
We've still got erratic passage up there.
Which still exists, which incidentally is on the other side of the fault plane that you can see here. Without the destruction of Balch Cave, Shatter and WL would not have been found. WL was buried under loads of calcite in Crystal Chamber, and it wouldn't have been dug or seen by anybody. Above WL was a stalagmite slope that went up, and at the top you can see a round hole, and that leads into Avon Chamber, where there's some nice lithostrosine deposits. After Balch was destroyed, WL was discovered in 1967
With Conning Tower.
with Conning Tower.
This is Balch Cave, which is actually very important for the bat population that live in the local area. Just down the road there's quite a large population of breeding greater horseshoe bats, and a significant number of them will hibernate in this cave. Some of these bats also have rings on, and we've been able to read the ring numbers on them and find links with other sites across Somerset, and it shows the importance of protecting some of these sites for bats. The cave conditions in this cave and the location in this quarry provide ideal conditions for hibernation. They need a constant temperature and a high humidity. Lots of these bats will use these sites over many, many years. So they're very long-lived animals and they're very loyal to the site. So once bats start using a particular site, all the young bats that were born in that year will come and use this site, and they will continue to use these sites. Horseshoe bats tend to hibernate around 10 degrees. When the temperature gets above about 10 degrees outside, then they will come out and feed on dung flies in the winter and winter moths. So they can be active pretty much all year round. Single lesser horseshoe bat hanging from the roof, fairly common in Somerset, although they're a rare bat. And you often find them roosting singly in caves. They are quite small bats. They weigh about 5 grams, about the size of your thumb, whereas a greater horseshoe is about the size of a pear, anything up to 25 to 30 grams.
Shatter Cave was found in 1969, and it was found by 2 Cerberus members, Conway and Saxton, who happened to notice some small holes over in the corner. The current entrance that we have to Shatter is not part of the streamway or part of the natural process of the cave development. It's just where the actual quarry is blasted into the side of a chamber. WL is the streamway which re-emerges into Shatter Cave.
And both caves were temporarily lost when they quarried a bit further and rubble came over the entrance.
Yeah.
Before Shatter was found, we went into WL and dug through Hammer and Chisel Rift.
And we joined the 2 caves together, didn't we?
Yeah, when Shatter was
Didn't
joined
you?
up. Yes, we had a go in Pinkpool Chamber with explosives. I had a licence then.
He did.
And one Sunday morning we decided we were going to blast at the end of Pinkpool Passage and set off a charge, and then came out to get away from the fumes. And as we emerged from this entrance, so a party emerged from Shatter Cave entrance saying, "There's a bloody loud noise in there."
They were rather shook up.
And it was right near where they were exiting.
This was before the survey was done, mind.
Yeah.
There were quite a few rock falls in the corner here, and they all had to be redug open, so we decided, I think, to put in concrete pipes to stop people getting killed from the quarry face.
The outside world, for better or worse, has imposed itself on the entrance passages of Shatter and WL caves.
So this is the old entrance, is it? This is one of the gates that was put in the early days, yeah.
The biological world invades through entrance grilles, joints and fissures.
Oh, these are very fine tree roots, which this one's well over. I mean, you're not seeing all of it from your view, but it starts right up here, so it's nearly 1 metre long, this particular one.
Much more disconcerting is the permanent impact of quarry blasting.
I wouldn't touch it personally at all. Crowbarred this originally in the 60s, and it just wiggles around a bit, and then we decided not to in case the whole roof comes down.
I think you should poke it.
Perhaps this is the nearest point to the quarry face in the first major chamber. So we have all this massive collapse from the back end of this bedding, which is now on the floor. That's red cross on the back end of that one as well.
I just do not like those fractures there.
Oh, it's touching the boat.
Lighting them up for filming made them look even worse.
That was the point where there were holes drilled in, and that was why there was a smell of diesel, because they were using this diesel and nitrate.
And this is the canopy. This wall is perfectly preserved. We believe that the chamber itself acted as an air cushion to the shock waves from quarry blasting. One of the closest points to the quarry, and possibly where the drills came through, and they poured the diesel in, which created the diesel smell that we've got in this area. Of course, it's not here now.
Oh God, what's above us?
This piece of bedding is detached. It's 2 metres long by 1 metre wide.
It was better to pass quickly underneath to get to safer ground. The naming of Shatter Cave was appropriate for natural as well as man-made fracture.
You've got more recent fragments which are the result of the blasting damage from quarrying, lying on top of much older cemented-in stalagmite fragments.
Hundreds of much older breakages of flowstone were discovered by the original explorers all the way up to the far end of the cave.
Right, yes, this is an extraordinary formation.
Isn't it just? The main calcite column there has been restacked by caves in the past.
I would say absolutely, definitely not. As far as I can recall, it's always been like that, and I've been here since the cave was found.
Many of the fractures are very old.
Well, the fracture displacement here is a good 6 inches, so you can imagine the force that's pushed this laterally and just smashed it off and moved it from here right back to here, and then it's recalcited.
They even predate active flowstone formations.
The original stalactites have been sheared off, and then you've got regrowth and new growth on the bottom of them.
Recent studies focus on water filling up and then freezing in the caves.
Originally, I think the theory was that it was and when the stream was flowing through, it was tossing rocks around and damaged it. The latest theory is it may well be cryogenic. As the ice has frozen and thawed and shifted, it's just taken it with it.
During the multiple glaciations of the last 2 million years. The most recent was the Davensian, between 80 and 11,000 years ago. The caves of Fairy Quarry are some of the best decorated in the UK. A happy combination of conditions have led to rapid precipitation of calcium carbonate. Some conservation tapes that were laid decades ago have been incorporated into the flowstone that they were intended to protect.
A tide around that boss was in the 70s, so therefore it gives an indication of how quickly calcite can build up on things.
It's the carbon dioxide in the water diffusing back into the cave passage atmosphere that results in immediate precipitation of calcium carbonate as flowstone in all its huge variety of shapes. The simplest and most pure of stalactites are called straws. These are hollow and sometimes so transparent that water inside can be seen through the walls. Sometimes the tube becomes blocked and drips can burst out through the sides to form helictites. These random forms of crystal growth can develop in all directions under hydrostatic pressure. Stalagmites on the floors of the passages are multicrystalline and often contain concentric layers that can assist in calculation of the age of the formation. As water from above spreads out over the whole of the surface of the stalagmite, over time they become taller and wider, and can eventually join up with the source of the water, usually a stalactite, on the ceiling above. These pillars in Shatter are particularly impressive. Chateau Cave is renowned for some amazing curtains. These form on sloping walls where drips trickle down, gradually building outwards to form complex drapery. They become more folded and convoluted over time. Very thin, they are frequently translucent. Colour banding records changes in the chemistry and the sediment transport by the percolation water. In the pools of water on the cave floor, diffusion of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere takes place from the water's surface, so the crystals tend to develop here and around the edges. Crystals build downwards and outwards, eventually bridging right across the pool.
Beautiful.
One would imagine it was called Tor Chamber because of the Tor, but who can say? There was other sort of erotic thoughts.
Tor Chamber. It does look a bit like Glastonbury's Tor, I suppose, but then again it looks like a lot of other things too.
Often the most beautiful places are also those which are most easily damaged. And over half a century of visits, sometimes by unskilled and careless people, have left their toll on the caves.
Early 70s, there was a Sunday morning trip with the Border Caving Group who had army cadets down staying for the weekend. Before everything was taped, unfortunately somebody on the return came along the ledge, didn't see the hectites, and that was the end of them. There are some photographs available of what they look like, and they certainly were a very special set of hectites.
Has been destroyed. Within about 2 years of the cave's discovery, points perhaps to a group of cavers who shouldn't have been in here with the experience level they had. Junior leaders apparently used to be brought in as parties, as training, and this sort of cave is really quite unsuitable for that sort of activity.
Others are, to some extent, repairable. Muddy handprints can get sealed into actively growing formations.
Because there's been a lot of stealth damage over the years.
Well, this is way past the tapes, so somebody's touched it, and it's now become muddy, and there's really no need for it.
That's better.
That's a little bit better. It shows you can clean it off if you catch it quick enough.
See a difference?
Yeah.
And then just spray it to get off any dust that's been created.
A little bit of spray water first, and then a bit of brush.
It's all grown in.
Yeah, hang on a minute.
No, not quite.
Okay.
This is making quite a difference.
Have a regular trip down, work through the caves.
Well, that's somewhat immediately. Yeah, I can see stuff coming off there. That has made a difference inside. That might get picked off here. Less than washing.
One more like that.
I don't think there's much more to do. No.
One particularly notorious example of apparently irreparable damage was in the magnificent pillar chamber of Chateau Cave, with its crystal floor and wall-to-wall white flowstone.
Well, this was the absolute centrepiece of the cave when it was originally found.
And also the final chamber seen by normal caving visits.
Unfortunately, on about the second trip, something walked straight out through the middle of it,
leaving footprints and broken crystals. This was subsequently cleaned off, but then it happened again a few years later. This was without doubt a desecration.
Yeah, exactly. He was a very big man.
They look very, very delicate. But,
Yeah.
As part of this filming project in 2019, it was decided to attempt a removal of the mud.
Look at that. Clean.
Really?
There's now just one piece left
Just one piece left.
on that lower section.
I hope you get that far piece.
Wow, that's totally unbelievable. But like we said, there's been no crystal regrowth, otherwise it'd be ingrained in the calcite.
We could just clean up on that far side.
And to everyone's surprise, it worked.
As if it was never there. Wow.
When formations are broken, some could be stuck back together.
It's arrowdite or something, isn't it?
Yeah. If you can see the joy,
I can see the glue.
keep going.
Early attempts used arrowdite, but this yellows with age.
Most things were damaged in the 70s and repaired then.
Well, it's Pineapple Grotto.
it's extraordinary, isn't it?
One amazing crystal column, called the Pineapple, was removed from WL at the time of its exploration.
There were some really nice pineapple formations in there, but possibly vandalised many, many years ago. Too near the entrance, before it was gated. Lost and gone forever.
It was located right in the middle of the only possible pathway through. The time came in 2019 for it to be returned to the cave and re-cemented into a slightly more protected location.
So this is what we're going to be putting back in.
It will just about tuck under there, I think. I can do that. I could do with a stick or something that I could wedge behind it to prop it up. That might do it. And then if someone can put some putty for me on the base of the pineapple, yeah. Oh, that's too much putty, I think. A bit of putty to put on the stump.
Yeah, can you hold my belt?
Yeah.
Right.
Try not to push it because it might just topple over.
It is planned that the cement will be recoloured to match the crystals. The Fairy Quarry caves were formed by the weathering and erosional processes of water on the limestone rock. They could have occurred in streams, percolation water from the land directly above, or as slow-moving large volumes of groundwater. All three of these contributed to the caves in a hydrological history that could be as old as 500,000 years. Some cave characteristics required higher water tables and therefore predate the present landscape of shallow valleys to the north. The ancient pattern of surface streams, swallets and ground flows that supplied water to the relic passages of, for example, Shatter and Fern Hill can only be conjectured. Most of the normal indications of ancient flow have been covered over or destroyed, so it is difficult to precisely state how the caves developed and how they linked together into one system. In one or two locations, like the Great Rift near the end of WL Cave, huge scallops on the walls are evidence of deep, slow-moving volumes of water that totally filled the passage. There are two small active drainage systems under the quarry area. The first has been seen, rarely, in Shatter and Conning Tower caves.
Can't really be followed very far.
Yeah, they all go to little sumps, don't they?
Yeah, and they become very constricted.
Investigated the streamway, albeit the entrance was very loose, and a couple of the students from Portsmouth actually free dived the sumps in Conning Tower without any ropes or anything at all, assuming there was going to be an airspace, which there was. Otherwise we'd have lost them.
The current streamways, which are now well below the Quarry floor, are quite immature and can't really be followed very far.
10 years ago, I was crawling in and the others had gone on ahead of me, so it was nice and quiet, and I could hear water flowing. I thought, this is a bit strange. I caught up the others eventually, and I said to them, I can hear water flowing, and they all laughed at me.
We laughed.
You did laugh.
We did laugh.
You did laugh. So we started scrabbling away on the floor, and eventually, after a bit of work, this hole appeared, about 6 metres deep. I've only been down it once, because when you get down there you realise all these boulders are precariously hung over the hole. It's a very immature streamway flowing through, and this goes into Conning Tower Cave, which is part of the old Balch Cave. The extraordinary thing is, nobody since then, as far as I know, has ever heard the stream flowing.
It's a nice little draft.
There is a draft. The holes at either end are pretty
minimal.
Stream. And that's the end of the story.
And we called it Viagra Rift because 10 years ago...
You did, I didn't.
We thought we were old back then, not realising how old we'd be now.
The second largest system flows through Withy Hill and Hillwithy caves 100 metres further west. The main water supply enters the limestone at Withybrook Slocker and returns to the surface at St Dunstan's Well, about a kilometre away to the north. For most of the time it transports percolation water from the quarry and the surrounding fields. In dry weather the only evidence of this water is down rifts in Withy Hill and static water in Hillwithy on the north side of the quarry. There is thought to be an immature passage a few metres down below the caves and the quarry floor, and this may have become damaged or blocked by blasting and waste materials of industry. This modern system cannot cope with major floods, and Withy Hill Cave becomes an active and occasionally impassable streamway, completely filling the entrance rifts to the roof and rushing out of the man-made entrance under pressure. In these conditions, the quarry floor can become a small lake. It is this flooding that creates the problem of mud build-up in Withy Hill Cave. This forms a dirty and unwelcome contamination in this most beautiful small streamway.
All the flood water comes here, and this is almost a low point in the quarry, because when it gets through to the other side, if you're in Hillwithy, it's a real mud trap, and part of Hilliers was always very muddy when you went upstream.
And you can see evidence of a lot of flooding on all the stalagmites and stalactites here, because originally they were all pristine white and sparkling.
Hillwithy receives floodwater and suspended sediment through the quarry scree, and it adds to the cave's somewhat underwhelming attractions.
It's not a very long cave.
Hillwithy's not a very long cave unless you're prepared to suffer.
I don't think there are any delights.
It was named Hillwithy Cave because it was presumed to be part of the Hilliers and Withy Hill cave system. And at that time the cave was known to end in a sump. There's always been mud transported through the system.
Swimming in fine gravel. When you get a certain distance in, it becomes quite smelly and unpleasant apparently.
But I don't remember that much about it except that it was generally unpleasant.
Yeah, slime and diesel.
Whether there's a connection through these days is doubtful probably at the moment. It still needs digging out.
Came in the quarry in about 1974, was it?
That year.
Somebody said all the sump's gone in there.
Well, you're not going to go in there.
Bloody hell, no. It's not the only passage I've pushed in at Squalor. Well, when we arrived, somebody, and I can't remember who it was, said, we've just been in there, Pete, this is your chance, the sump has gone. So I started down into this passage, and it was just about the most disgusting thing I've ever done. It was a flat-out crawl in a tube, and I was essentially pushing along a mound of slurry rather as you might do in a farmyard, and this stuff was falling with the right sort of farmyard noises into a pot at the far end. Fortunately, before I reached the pot, you were able to get into a bedding passage, and I went as far as a boulder choke, which was probably negotiable, where I gave up because of the cold, the mud and general misery. The choke has been passed and it does connect with Hilliers Cave. Lisa, don't make me go down that hole, sir.
It's a very low airspace through parts of the passage. It might be sucked just through there.
You mean you're not ready to go through there either?
No. Maybe in slightly warmer weather when it's warmer outside.
Nice
Where you can see the
colour.
footholds underwater where you sort of would normally crawl through.
It's looking a bit out of condition.
Just a little bit sumpy today.
Withy Hill and Hillwithy were the final caves to be uncovered by the quarry when it deepened its workings.
And then they blasted out the lower bench, which uncovered Withy Hill and Hillwithy.
Rubble was piled up against the Withy Hill entrance to allow the installation of a small gate. The cave differs from those already found. Passage sizes are smaller and the journey to the end is more of a physical challenge.
This tight awkward bit in the bedding here, running along straight and almost totally filled with calcite, I called Stale Shuffle. Are you too old for this? Probably. Well, it's been brought down by quarry blasting. There's an awkward step here which you've got to get your toe into.
Part of a prominent curtain lies in pieces on the floor.
You can see the remains of what would have been a very large curtain. I'm sure it was damage as a result of quarry blasting. The vibrations have carried this far. Consequently, the chamber is known as broken curtain chamber. Across the bottom, it's some lovely microgoers. So we drop down into the Baydoe streamway, which runs underneath the stile here. This is a little awkward bit below the broken curtain chamber. The best thing is to find an anchor point for your hands and kick around until you can find a foothold. Or even a knee hole.
As bright summer,
Like most of the timber.
Once in the streamway, progress through the cave demands slow, careful movement.
as bright as roses in the morning.
Approaching Helictite Corner, and you can see evidence of a lot of flooding.
Every viewpoint shows features of interest and beauty.
There used to be a lot more of them, basically. Whether it's just carelessness, people just standing up and crouching.
You can see why that bit on the end's getting big, can't you? Because of the amount of water coming down through there.
It's like a mini version
Yeah.
of the elephant's trunk.
It is necessary to squeeze past fragile formations, some growing quickly and some now being dissolved or washed away.
Magnificent, isn't it? The baobab tree.
Tapes and bypass routes protect unique features.
Careful where you put your feet.
Because you go up a boulder choke, then drop to the floor of boulder choke, and then go round and come back into this passage.
The rich colours and variety of flowstone features lead to frequent stops to admire and photograph. There is every type of formation. It's a sort of chocolate box cave that needs time and many visits to savour. The passage divides towards the end of the cave. A rising rift enters the glistening pool series.
I wanted pink, but I couldn't find any.
Yeah, multiple curtain here with several lamps coming down, and also trickling down at different points through different times of development.
So this stalactite is the famous twisted column. We found it broken and we took it out to stick it together, but we realised that if you look on the end here, it was held in the roof by a very, very small piece of rock. You can just see the actual straw that started off this whole double stalactite. But also it's fracturing, it's actually rotting away. Now whether the pH has changed in the water, so instead of forming the stalactite, it's eaten away at it. When we weighed it, it was at least 12 kilos, the whole thing. It's fallen under its own weight, and we know that definitely because where it's come from, anybody breaking it off would have broken those straws off. It probably happened about 20 years ago. Already, where it's come off, there's a start of two straws, so we're unable to stick it back up into the roof, but we felt for conservation it was better to lay it on the floor where it was found. And then that's the bit where I get stuck.
This is a fat belly rift. So the obvious thing is, if you can get your belly through it, it ain't that fat. Mind you, I can't get it through the next bit. Oh, here we go.
At Pearl Chamber, high-level passages branch off towards the end of Shatter Cave.
I was leading a trip some 40 odd years ago here, and I just happened to notice a little drafting tube up there full of boulders. So I dug it out and got into what is now called Jonathan's Chamber. My little boy was 1 year old that same month in November, so I felt that I had to call it Jonathan's Chamber.
Around its edges are some remarkable treasures.
That's stunning. I don't remember that. I'm wondering if I've been in there before. If I have, it was years ago. I remember just...
Back to the main route is Column Chamber.
Quite a big chamber at the end, up through a vertical slide.
Just beyond this is the final flourish of pillars that marks the end of the Glistening Pool series. The other west passage can be followed for 150 metres to two horribly loose chokes.
If you go there though to the end of Withy Hill and you look at that boulder running at the end, it looks diggable, but I bet it doesn't get there that easily.
No, we've been up in the roof and around there. I think actually that was nearly the end of it. When a rock fell out the roof onto his thigh, basically, and pinned him, we nearly said, all right, we're off now. But we didn't. Silly boys.
Suppose we best get him out there.
But no need to go there. There is a climb up into an extremely tight squeeze.
No, it's definitely beyond me now.
That gives access to one of the Fairy Cave Quarry's most famous grottos. Green Lake Chamber can only be seen by very slim cavers.
And it's got a lovely pom-pom on the end of the very long straw at the end there, which is amazing.
Green Lake Chamber is the epitome of the Quarry Caves. Fragile and marvellous, it requires care and skill to view and to leave it undamaged for future generations.